Hello, and welcome to my first episode of my new podcast, Tom Slips Into Conversation With. I'm on a dog walk with my girlfriend Joy and my dog friend Mocha. We are going a little walk. As you can see, it snowed yesterday, which was really fun, and it was Mocha's first time with proper snow, and she absolutely loves it. I quite like playing the game where you throw a ball of snow. She tries to catch it in her mouth. My new podcast series, Tom Slips Into Conversation With, is a podcast talking to creative and crafty kind of people, not just knitters and crocheters. Talk to musicians and dancers and all kinds of people. We all kind of know how kind of bad 2020 was and how 2021 is not off to the best start. And that's why I kind of wanted to create this podcast to help inspire people to get into crafting and into making and do something with their time off. Crafting and being creative is a wonderful way of trying to help with your mental health. And that's why I wanted to create this and hopefully inspire a bunch of people into doing something different or trying something new. This episode I'm talking to Kira. Kira's a good friend of mine. I've known her for a couple of years or so. We used to work together in a cafe in Coventry. So that's how I knew her. And she kind of started her journey of music kind of when we got to know each other, really, which is quite cool. And it's been a really good conversation. Kira and I talk a little bit about the music industry, how it is at the moment, how COVID has kind of affected her creating, a little bit about being an introvert. At the end of this conversation, Kira plays us out with one of her songs, so definitely stay tuned until the end. It's a really good listen. And I will see you at the end of the episode with a little bit more chat. We start the conversation with me trying to work out what day it is when we're recording. 31st today? Yeah,
New Year's Eve.
So would you be normally gigging tonight?
I'd like to say so, but all of my memories and archive on social media, I haven't been gigging in any New Year's Eve. So
Oh really?
I'd like to think it's a big productive end to the year, but I don't know. I feel like most of 2020, to be honest, I've had in my head I should be doing this, but I'm not.
Yeah. Let's go back into how did you get into music? When did you start?
I think I started because I remember having a conversation with you, which would have been a year and a half ago now, probably.
Yeah.
I thought about this the other day actually, because you were saying you wanted to get into videos or I guess YouTube, and you've got your Instagram TV and stuff. Yeah. And I was talking about how I wasn't sure how to brand my music stuff. So I think it must have been just before then, maybe the summer of 2018, I'd say. I've always been doing it at home, but this project, cringe, solo project, about 2 years.
Cool. So you're actively trying to do it for about 2 years or so, but I'm guessing you've always been in music. Looking at your Instagram, you've taken little snapshots of when you were a kid, singing. It's obviously been a big part of your life for years.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say it's really cool that you've kind of bit the bullet and you're proper going for it now.
Yeah, I think I've never had the confidence, and so many people that I know now who know me as I am in my 20s kind of assume that I've always been, I don't even know what the word would be, proud of who I am and expressive and stuff, but that's not been the case at all. I see 16-year-olds now, the way they dress, I'm I wish I could have had the confidence to do that at 16, or even with music, take certain opportunities,
So people see you more as an extrovert than an introvert, but you feel yourself more as an introvert, and because you do when I see you and stuff, you do have you do give the impression that you're extrovert and that because you definitely have your own style for
Yeah.
sure. I think it's really cool that it looks like you have zero fucks, but then I'm sure that you do have your own insecurities as well.
Yeah, they're all just manifested like deeply in my head.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think it's just time. I don't know if I could say I'm ashamed, but I'm disappointed at the amount of times, like as a teenager, I had gig opportunities locally that I just never, I would always either cancel or kind of mess it up, not spectacularly, but just never really had the confidence to say, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And then I suppose, yeah, I moved away, and that was a big part of like realizing that no one actually cares in the best way possible. Like,
Yeah.
not in a dwelling on anything negative way, but just like no one's ever going to care as much as you do. So most of the time, people aren't paying attention. And just having that realization, albeit a bit later than everyone else, was like, okay, I'll do this.
No, I get that. I feel like I had that, to be honest, when I turned around 25, I just realized most of it is in my head. I think you get to a point, don't you, where you're like, well, if that person wants to be a dick, then that's fine. They can be a dick. I'm not
Yeah.
going to let it bother me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to see them again, or like they've obviously got their own problems or issues or whatever.
Yeah. It is weird, like to I don't know if you had this, but it felt like it was really a really slow transition for me. Like, there would be certain days where I'd just feel more comfortable in myself, and then before I know it, like a couple years later, like I was doing things that years ago I just would have completely freaked out about doing.
Yeah. No, I get that. I think it was like after kind of my last breakup, basically, I just decided to say yes to more things
Mm-hmm.
and care less a little bit more. And it's amazing how much more confident in yourself you can kind of become if you just start saying yes a bit more and just kind of doing what makes you happy.
Yeah, for sure. It's always one of those pivotal things as well, isn't it? Like you said, like a breakup, or like for me it was, I say, losing my job / quitting my job, because I'm still not sure which it was. But it's always a big pivotal life moment that leads you to turn that switch off and be like, you know what? Not even like, because sometimes it's framed in a way that not caring about what other people think means you're being harmful, but I don't think it is.
Yeah. No, I get that. Yeah. I mean I've known you for what, probably like two years?
I think so, yeah. Something like that.
2 and a bit years maybe. Even for that kind of short amount of time, I definitely saw you kind of grow a bit more confident and into yourself a bit more. And it's really cool to see, because I remember you saying that you were going to start doing music and stuff. And then I remember actually hearing you, because like I've heard people say, oh yeah, I do a bit of singing or I do a bit of playing because I used to be in that kind of world. I used to do a lot more music tech and stuff.
Of course.
And then I actually heard you, and then I was like, oh shit, no, you are a singer. You actually do that. Like that is something that you're like, I can tell that you're good at. What would you say your influences are?
So the artists that I really enjoy, as you can imagine, like Kate Nash, Girly, who I collabed with, people like even smaller artists like Zuzu. I don't know if you've heard of her.
No, but I'll give them a go.
She's cool. Lauren Hibbard, like some recent artists I really enjoy. But in terms of my playlist, it's just like a complete mess.
Yeah.
But I suppose it's whatever you need to get through the process, like cheesy 80s music. If it's going to make me want to create, then
yeah, I think you have kind of got your own style. There are definitely, like, when you listen to you, there's hints of like influence, like you said, like Kate Nash and stuff. But for me, I like kind of how raw it sounds.
mm-hmm.
Like you can tell that you're the one who's writing the songs, and like they're songs that mean something.
Yeah,
which is really cool. So yeah, I mean, I think like it's like hard nowadays. Like I remember being at school, and like if someone said, what kind of music are you into, it was easier to answer because there wasn't Spotify, it was a lot easier to go, oh yeah, I'm into rock. These are like the
Yeah,
five
yeah,
bands that I'm really into.
yeah.
Nowadays with Spotify and like YouTube Music and all that, I think it's really hard to say what music you're into, and because it's so much easier to listen to a really wide range of stuff,
Yeah.
which is probably like a blessing and a curse if you're trying to create music.
It's strange, like my on Spotify you have daily mixes, like
Hmm.
5 or 6 I think.
Yeah.
It's really weird, like I have a few different genres that kind of pop up, and you can tell like one of them is strictly like pop punk,
Yeah.
like you can see from the first couple artists, and then one of them will be like kind of new pop, like Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Top played artists of like every year. But then I've got genres, like I've got like 80s 90s hip hop that always, if I've listened to a lot of it that week, it will be on one of my daily mixes.
Hmm.
But then if it drops off, it won't be on any of them.
Yeah.
And so I kind of forget about that genre for a while. And the same with bands like Bright Eyes, like I guess like indie folk. Like it's weird how if Spotify's not recommending it to you, you do kind of forget
Yeah.
unless you go out and look for it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. Another like massive question that people always ask is like, do you think it's harder now to get into the music industry? And obviously I respect the fact that there is an interview taking place at that time, but I don't know how to answer that question. Like I'm, and anyone my age is not qualified to answer that question, because I wasn't around when I would have had to send out demo CDs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a way, I think it's easy to sit here as like a stereotypical millennial and be like, oh, it's so much harder because of the algorithm and all this stuff. But as well, I think if you put time into, like I've seen people put time into their social media without releasing any music, and they build up a fan base like immediately.
Yeah.
And it's insane, like you said, how stuff like that that's purely aesthetic can kind of draw people in.
Yeah, because I've been kind of around the music industry for quite a while. I think it's almost like a double-edged sword with like nowadays, because it's a lot easier for people to create stuff nowadays because you can literally do it on your phone. You can
Yeah,
like advertise it on your phone, you can create stuff on your phone, you can do all of that and interact with people.
yeah,
At the same time, there's a lot more people that are doing that, so it is a little bit harder, but I think it's probably easier now to like find your niche, build up a little audience. You don't have to do like 1,000 gigs a year, and you don't
yeah,
have to like spend loads of money on advertising and trying to find a record deal. Like you can
yeah,
do that all yourself if you want to.
yeah, for
So
sure.
I think it's like one of those where it's kind of like,
It takes some adapting, I imagine, for
yeah.
people who have been doing it for years. But yeah, I don't know. Like I can never compare. And when people ask me, I'm just like, I don't know. I've yeah, I imagine it was hard for people like the Rolling Stones, but it was probably hard in different ways.
Do you what do you prefer? Do you prefer writing and recording songs, or do you actually prefer gigging?
I mean, it's weird. Like we spoke earlier about how, I don't know, I guess as you, as someone who knows me in person, knows that I'm an introvert, despite whatever impression I give off. When I first started, I hated gigs. And I would say to people openly, like, the only reason I do them is for promo.
Mhm.
Like, I wish that I could be one of those people that's mainly based online and has music videos out and interviews online and stuff like that. And I've kind of realized that isn't how it works.
Mhm.
Although 2020 has proved that be careful what you wish for,
Yeah.
essentially. Like, so naturally, I'd say I prefer writing, and I guess just the process of it all.
Mhm.
Like, because I try to do everything from like writing the song to recording the song to having like a marketing plan, as dumb as that sounds, on social media,
Yeah.
email pitching to people. Like I really enjoy the business side of it.
Mhm.
But then gigs are kind of where you let out all of the energy that you build up doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's weird though. I don't think I've ever met anyone else that dreads gigs as much as I do.
How do you write your songs then? Like, what's the kind of?
I kind of just start with an idea. I don't know. It's usually just a thought, which sounds really vague. With my song Pretty Sure, for example, it was just thinking about being in a situation where, just for background context, if anyone doesn't know and is watching this, how do I explain it? It's a song about being in a relationship and essentially being cheated on or screwed over or whatever, and deciding, instead of blaming the other person, to blame the person who was at fault, who's the person in the relationship. So the chorus line is, I'm pretty sure she's not the one who broke my heart. And it, like, I wasn't going through that situation at the time, but I had friends that were. I had, stuff happens in life, you know, it's a big trope, especially with women, to kind of blame the other woman. And I just had the recurring thought in my head, like, well, I'm pretty sure she's not the one who's at fault here. Like, I'm pretty sure it's you who, whatever. And I just went from there. I just knew the chorus was going to be that kind of looped over. And then I think I start with the chorus, and then the verse just kind of goes into a bit of detail. But yeah, there's no formula. It's always just like one kind of thought that pops into my head, and I'm like, I'll write a song about this.
That's cool. So do you start with the lyrics first and then kind of move on to the kind of melody and the song? Yeah,
for sure. I think, like, I saw someone say the other week, like, if you're writing a song and you're leaving it and coming back to it and leaving it and coming back to it, and it's taking you that long to come up with a melody or some sort of fluidity, to just forget it. And I never would have agreed with that, like, in the past, but I think the more I write, the more I realize, like, if it is a good song, it will come to you.
Yeah.
Like, the melody will come to you. It shouldn't take, like, sitting down weeks on end and being like, oh, I just can't, like, figure this out, you know?
I think it's discipline, isn't it? You need to, like, keep chipping away at it and keep doing it.
Yeah, for sure. It's strange. Like, it takes time, but it's so easy, like any hobby, I guess. Like, the more time you put into it, the more it takes up your life. You know, I'm sure, like, for you, knit slip started out as a couple hours a week, and now you've got an Etsy store, and you know, like you said, it is just like keeping at it.
Yeah. Do you have any other hobbies apart from kind of music?
I don't know, like, this is where I realize I have no, like, life. I think just I enjoy styling stuff a lot.
I was going to say, your kind of fashion seems like it's a kind of hobby.
Yeah, which is, I say it's for music a lot of the time, but a lot of the time I do just enjoy, like, styling stuff. Or, like, I'll do a photo shoot and I'm like, oh, this is for, like, music promo, and I know that I've got no music coming out soon, but I just want to, like, do it for the sake of it. But it's something I've always wanted to do, but it's just such a weird thing to, I don't know, maybe not as a job, but it's a hobby for sure.
Yeah. Let's talk about your fashion, because, like, looking on your Instagram, like, it obviously looks like you really enjoy styling. You definitely have your own style for sure. And like, where do you have, like, any influences for your style, or do you literally just like doing whatever you want to do?
I have my jumper on, by the way.
Yeah, no, I saw. Yeah, thank you.
Everyone can't see it. This is like, we love it. I don't know. I think it started from, like, being in school, and obviously Topshop was, like, the peak of fashion at that time for everyone. I don't know how to word it. I was never poor as a child, but we had, like, hand-me-downs. I say we, and I would look in charity shops, and it was always kind of a less of a socially acceptable thing than it is now.
Yeah.
You know, like, whereas now there's Depop sellers that would be the kind of girls that would bully people in school for going to charity shops. But that's another story. But I think it came from, like, not really having the choice to look at places like Topshop and kind of having to remove myself from being involved in that. Like, there's no way that I'd spend whatever 50 quid on a pair of jeans as a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
I think it just stemmed from, like, using what I had and having to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And now, like, I'm lucky that I don't have to do it, but there's some joy in like trawling through charity shops and finding some really amazing pieces. Like, it is really addictive. Even places like TK Maxx. I love TK Maxx. But I don't know, I suppose there was a point where I probably started charity shopping when I was like 13, 14.
Yeah.
And obviously initially it's like there's kids who are like, that's secondhand. But then as the years go on, like people, I don't know, people will be like, oh, like, where's your outfit from or whatever. And they see it as something that's, and I don't mean this to compliment myself, because I wonder why they think this, but they see it as like really high fashion. Or like Balenciaga, for example, put no effort into into being proper. Like, it's almost comical, some of their, like, how out there their fashion is. So I think people see something that they don't understand or that isn't in the high street, and they immediately think it's intentional and expensive, which is just kind of fun to then be like, no.
Yeah. Because looking at your style, it looks like you do still put in a lot of effort on like matching things and stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know. Yeah.
Do you spend, or do you just kind of throw things together? Is it like, how does it work?
I don't know. I'm looking at my closet right now and I'm like, I honestly don't know. I think if you have a couple pieces that are more out there than the others, it can be hard, because I don't know, if a lot of you, basically my entire wardrobe is just like a mixture of patterns and colors. And I think the more weird stuff that you have, the easier it is almost.
Mm-hmm.
You can just kind of look at something and be like, oh, this is blue and white, and oh, these trousers are blue, so they'll go together.
Yeah.
But it just takes years of like buying stuff that you see alone, and it's like, how am I ever going to wear that?
Yeah.
But then when you have a collection of it, it's like, oh, okay, none of it makes any sense, and that's why it makes sense.
Where do you see yourself, kind of like, where do you see your music kind of going? Like, have you got like a plan or an idea, or are you kind of letting it just kind of go with the flow?
I should have goals. I don't have goals in the sense of like, I want to hit this many streams, or I probably should. But I think, like you said, when I quit that job and we started working together, that was really me just wanting to do it full time for like a solid few years, while I still can, while I've got no other kind of commitments. So I don't really know, like, it's hard to not get down when you set yourself a goal and don't achieve it, especially in 2020 when everything is kind of curbed by COVID.
Yeah.
But I think just building habits has been the main thing for me. So like making sure that I do a certain amount a week, or making sure that I put a certain amount of time into demos, even if I don't release them. And then from those habits kind of you achieve things that you didn't know you wanted to achieve.
Yep.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll see. I don't know.
Are you working on an album or an EP at the moment, or are you just?
I'm working on a single, which is out next month.
Oh, awesome.
Which I'm excited about.
Cool.
Yeah, it's strange. Like, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like the world's attention span has decreased a lot in the past 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I can't watch films anymore. I'm like, this is 90 minutes of my life.
Yeah, we're the same. Yeah, we tend to watch movies now as if they're like episodes. So we kind of 30, 40 minutes at a time, and then we'll come back to it, because we like, we're not very good at just sitting down and watching a movie.
It's so hard. But like, I see people release albums, obviously they're successful, but I mean, especially someone who's trying to start out, I can't ask people for that much attention, because it's just not possible. Like, especially when regretfully, I have to make Instagram reels that
Mm.
get whatever 30,000 views, and that's more effective than me releasing an album. It's
Yeah.
crazy. But you just kind of have to go with whatever the world is doing, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I feel like music has changed in that way of like back in the day when we used to get an album, we would have it on a CD or something like that. We would listen to the whole album. Nowadays with
Yeah,
Spotify, yeah, I think it's unless there's like a new album, like the Taylor Swift album,
yeah,
like I just kind of listen to that all the way through. Um, but I feel like people tend not to really listen to a whole album anymore. They'll listen to
yeah,
things on a shuffle or they'll listen to it in a playlist of some kind.
yeah,
So I think yeah, focusing on individual songs rather than because like I know like Red Hot Chili Peppers and like other bands that I used to listen to would have there was a flow to the album and like
yeah,
you would know what the next song is going to be
yeah.
even like without playing the next song.
Hmm.
But I feel like nowadays it's harder for that because people,
Yeah,
yeah, like you said, that just don't have the attention span to listen to a whole album. They'll just listen to
yeah,
a
for sure.
track.
Like it makes it harder, I think, for like going forward to then release an album, because you
Mm,
think you're putting a lot of energy and time into one song, and to make that one song as catchy and to stand out as much as possible.
yeah,
And how could, if you're doing that with every song, like how could those songs then stand on, like flow on an album together
yeah,
when they're all designed to stand out on their own? Like it definitely works against the traditional, like you said, like the flow of an album. Like I don't know if you have this, but like songs that you've had originally on CD, for
hmm,
example, like you said, Red Hot Chili Peppers. Um, if ever I listen to a Bright Eyes song, like in my head knows what song's going to be next,
yeah,
even though it's not because it's on shuffle.
yeah, yeah,
But like one song will end, and I'm like, oh, it's going to go into, and then it doesn't,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like, what? Like so strange.
Yeah, I no, I get that completely. Like if I'm gonna listen to an album, I'll listen to it from start to finish. I don't like
Yeah,
doing a random thing because there are albums that I haven't listened to for years, but I still know that build up to that next song.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, I think like albums they used to have obviously the hits that have like gone into the charts or whatever, but then they've also had a few songs that you know that they're like into and they've created the songs because they really like it, but
yeah,
it's sometimes not as good as the
yeah.
rest of the album. But yeah, it must be quite hard trying to do an album now that you've got to think of each song as an individual song.
I think it's harder as well. Like you said, with someone like Taylor Swift, I
Mm,
I listened to, is it Folklore, the first one?
hmm.
What's the second one called? I don't
Yeah,
know.
I'm not sure.
Evermore? I don't know. Um, I listened to that the day it came out, and it was like she's someone who has a lot of influence, who a lot of people are invested in,
Mm,
and her releasing an album, the day before, you're automatically going to have hundreds of thousands of people who will listen to it like that.
yeah,
Um, Whereas, like you said earlier, when the industry is so, maybe not oversaturated, but so much more saturated than it used to be, with people starting out and making stuff at home,
mm,
it's a lot to ask for people's time. So even with an EP, it's like you release a song first, you release a music video. So in in the most aesthetic way possible, they see if they like what they see,
yeah,
essentially, if they like the style of it and stuff. And then even with that one song, you then have to condense it into like an Instagram post or a reel, or I don't know, some kind of interactive thing. Like you then have to draw people in, because even 3 minutes is a lot to ask.
yeah.
So yeah, I wonder where it's going to go, because I don't know. I don't think it can get much more condensed than it already is.
I wonder whether we'll see like another wave of it going back into people just really being into albums and yeah, just wanting to spend a bit more time. I think, especially at the moment, people have got a lot more time on their hands because of the whole
Yeah,
world burning and
yeah.
crashing.
Like every release that I've done, I've learned more. And like, don't get me wrong, I started out knowing nothing. Like a lot of the bands that I am familiar with in in the West Midlands even all go to music college or even music business. They have some kind of knowledge of even the terminology that they need to use in the industry. Whereas I was on like whatever the equivalent of like some forum where you ask questions. Like I just didn't know anything. So every release that I've had, I've built up, but then every release I have, it's like, oh, I didn't realize this existed. And I had to contact these people. Like it's just something that no one ever talks about or tells you.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of lucky that I've built up a network of people now that like bloggers and stuff who are very successful, but they are completely against people charging for coverage. And like 2 singles ago, I was happy to pay for an interview. And now I've, like I said, I'm lucky enough to know a group of people who are in the industry who are like, no, that's not normal. And it's like when you're starting out, anyone could say anything and you'd be like, okay, like you just have to take their word for it.
Yeah, it must be hard when you're like, because you just want to get out there and you want to get, and you're happy to either do gigs for free or, like you said, like pay to like have your kind of interview. Either do it for free or just like get them to pay you, because
it's hard to say. Like even with any kind of creative thing, like I know there's the whole thing of like, oh, it's not a hobby, it's a job. Like I deserve to be paid for my time. And I agree that, you know, no one should be asking for anything for free because it does take time. There should always be some, you know, it should always benefit both people. But at the same time, the amount of opportunities I would have missed out on if I didn't do them for free.
Yeah.
It's like you kind of have to weigh it up and be like, okay, I'm not going to do 1 gig a week for free because, or maybe even like doing 1 a month would be more effective. But it's just, yeah, I wouldn't have got into it if I thought it would pay like a salary.
Yeah. Let's move on to TikTok, because TikTok is a world I haven't got into, and there's a part of me that I feel like I'm too old, and I almost refuse. Like I've been on Instagram almost since it launched. Like I started years ago, back when I used to do a lot more art, and like I understand Instagram. Even reels, like that has kind of like surpassed me a little bit. I like, a part of me knows I should probably get into it a little bit, but like because I know that you've kind of got into TikTok a little bit. I think you said like it kind of makes you cringe as well.
Yeah, it is a different world.
Yeah.
Like I feel desensitized when I'm on it. Like people do like point of view videos, but they're not, a lot of them aren't comedy. They're like someone singing a line of a song and it's, oh, there's this one guy, right? And I'm sure he's not going to care if I call him out because he's got like millions of followers. But for example, he has this one video that's like, point of view, you're my sister who's, I don't know what, like part of the LGBTQ community. And I come home to our conservative parents and they're mocking you. And it's this POV of him singing a song and like crying. And I'm like, you've created this whole scenario in your head.
Yeah.
He's not saying like, oh, this is to raise awareness or, you know, I have a sister in real life. It's solely just his face. And I found it so odd when I started on TikTok, but now I see stuff like that. I scroll past it and I think, okay, whatever. And then I have to kind of double back and be like, wait, no, why did I not recognize that was cringe anymore?
Yeah, people seem to build up a new persona very quickly on TikTok because it's like a different world. How do you feel about social media as a whole kind of thing?
It's hard. I used to hate it. And we all know the Instagram algorithm's not designed to showcase creative work. It's designed to keep us addicted to it. Otherwise, why would it still be around? I used to really despise it. Like every time the Instagram algorithm changed, the fact that people know how to kind of play the algorithm is insane to me. But it's difficult because I see influencers and there's so much positivity on the app and support that doesn't often translate to real life.
Yeah.
It's easy for people to go on there when they've got 100,000 followers and say, oh, you know, like, sorry, that was my radiator.
That's right.
Yeah, it's easy to go on there when you've got a following and say, oh, like, you know, just keep at what you're doing. Like, one day you'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing just makes me want to like give up, because it's like before social media was a thing and celebrities would be like, oh, money doesn't make you happy. And it's like, okay, so give it money then.
Yeah, I hate that saying. Money might not make you happy, but it can buy a lot of stuff and give you security of like for like rent or whatever, or food.
Yeah.
Like if you've got money, you don't have to worry about the little things that a lot of people who don't have money like worry about. Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, it's probably quite different because I am a bit older and I'm a guy and I don't get hit with as much crap from social media.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like the knitting community and the kind of craft community is wonderful. Like, I think maybe I'm perhaps a little bit less sensitive to it because I do know, like, but I think it depends on what you're looking at and the kind of communities that you're in. Each platform is different. Like TikTok, people have their own new personas, and it's kind of hard to see if people get affected by negative comments because they have got their own persona.
Yeah.
Twitter, I think, is probably quite a toxic place as well, from what I hear.
Yeah.
But I feel like Instagram is probably, for me, one of the more innocent platforms.
Yeah,
I think
for sure.
For me, it feels a little bit more kind of community. I think Facebook has turned into a weird conspiracy theory platform.
Oh yeah. Every time I log in, it's like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I only go onto Facebook nowadays to like get rid of any notifications, and the notifications are normally something to do with Instagram because they're linked. So yeah, you're a bit younger than me, so I'm guessing you've kind of grown up with social media a bit more than I did when I was younger.
I think I had Facebook when I was like 13, but I only used it for Pet Society.
Yeah.
I wasn't allowed it until like, and obviously at the time my friends had it, and they were like, "Oh, just make an account," and I just I don't think I was allowed it until I was like 16, which I get now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I downloaded Instagram when it came out, so maybe like 16 as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I've grown up with it as a teenager, but I haven't. It's not wired into my brain like kids now, I imagine.
Is there anything else you want to cover? We haven't really talked about the whole 2020 Coventry theatre culture thing, which I know that you're involved in, aren't you?
The album, yeah. So yeah, Coventry 2021 had a project, I suppose, which was to create an album. I don't know if it was intended to be this way, but with 16 artists in lockdown. So they essentially like asked us for a time slot and moved the equipment between each of our houses for one day each.
Yeah.
Obviously not one entire day. And so I had like all of this equipment in my house for an afternoon and recorded a song.
That's quite cool. When does your new like kind of album come out?
So I'm releasing a single towards the end of January. We had a video planned that we were going to book in to film on like the 17th, but obviously with Tier 4, I don't know how that's going to work. But yeah, hopefully the end of January, at least.
That's cool.
So yeah, I'm really excited. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. Well, that was really cool talking to you. Did you want to play us out?
I figured I'd play the one that I did with City of Culture as part of the project. It is on my Spotify, but I believe it's at the bottom when it says appears on. So yeah, if anyone does want to listen to it, it'll be there. But it's called 5 Minutes Time.
Every morning make the same mistake, start scrolling while I'm still in bed, and before I know it, it's an hour later, and I hate myself. Sometimes I feel like I could be the best thing that you have ever seen. Take off the filter, and I look in the mirror. I'm not tanned enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm petite but not in the right way. All I do is overthink and waste my time and continue scrolling. Well, you can imagine how that one ends, just me crying in my bed again. And no, I swear that I'll be fine, I'll call you in 5 minutes time. Now I'm putting my makeup on and I got my cheesy playlist on. And no, I swear that I'm okay, I'll call you when I'm on my way. When we're on our way to the bar, I feel like we could be movie stars, especially if our Uber exec is a Jaguar. Then I have to excuse myself as you order, cause I see someone judging me in the corner, even though it's not a reflection of me. My brain screams, what's so funny? Is it my lipstick? Is it my outfit? Is it everything about me? Should I turn it down or I should just be less confrontational? Well, you can imagine it's hard to bear, I don't agree with my thoughts, but they're still there. And you can imagine it's hard to unwind, so I'll be out in 5 minutes time. Such a pointless way to live, why can't I be more positive? I think I need more than a face mask, self-care my way out of this mess. No one's ever gonna really know me, I only swear cause my jokes aren't funny. I could try and beat the mature one, but that wouldn't be any fun, yeah. No one tells you that following your dreams requires more money than it seems, and having awkward conversations like, what's the career situation? Am I smart enough? Should I just get a job that I'm proud to post on LinkedIn? Am I just lazy, refusing to let my mid-20s in? I can drink all night in indie bars, that is me, that is me. Enjoy foreign films in the bath. No, that is my destiny. I can go back to the gym and be body confident. No, that is who I'm supposed to be. I could spend 200 quid on the hobby I just discovered. Can we just have some consistency, please? It's hard to be unapologetic when your life's one big identity crisis. You can imagine it's hard to unwind, so I'll be out in 5 minutes time. I'm trying to tell you that I'm doing fine. It's not your fault, it's not your problem, it's mine. Now I get the sense across the line, so I'll apologise in 5 minutes time. Da-da-da-da-da. Oh, peace.
And that was my first episode. How was that? Thank you very much for Kira being on the podcast, and thank you very much for playing us out at the end.
What's that say?
Mocha is, her ears and mouth is just full of snow. It's quite funny. Thank you very much for consuming this podcast. Just in case if you didn't know, you can watch this podcast on Instagram and YouTube, and you can also listen to the audio version on Spotify. So if you would like to see Kira performing, if you just listen to this, then you can go on my YouTube and watch her. Next week on episode 2 I have Alida, who is on Instagram as Metal and Bell. She is a crocheter among other things. So stay tuned, make sure you like, follow, subscribe, whatever platform you're watching this or listening to this, and I will see you next week. Have a good week, everyone.